Welcome to the Clocked In Podcast, y'all. It's Caleb. I have a really special guest today. But before I introduce her, I was doing some research and I saw these really cool quotables, right? One day you mentioned your name. And this one, there's a couple that stuck out to me. One said, whatever the venue, whether it's classroom or softball diamond or soccer, basketball court, when two balls get stuck in the net, Frank plays to win. I push myself to achieve in the classroom, on the court, in the field, anywhere. I just don't like to be average. Let's see. I push myself to succeed in all of it, which gets to be a little overwhelming. At the same time, I try to tell myself, you've really got to enjoy it. I really loved playing with all of them, and I really couldn't consider giving any of them up. So it was really, really cool to me when I lift you up a little bit.
Man, that's like a flashback.
It's crazy. I look at
that was so long ago.
And I'm deep like that. So like, I don't know. I want to know. It's so crazy. When I looked at one of the first things I saw was obviously like the basketball stuff, right? And I kind of knew that, but I didn't know that you won that much in high school. Like softball as well. Did you play soccer too?
I did, yeah.
Bro, there's some crazy. This is crazy.
I actually might hold the record for sectional titles.
Bruh, this is crazy. Yo.
It was kind of a luck though. I was there at like the right time.
Yeah, maybe, but you still are who you are, right? This was so crazy. It literally said, Frank is a junior. She has a shot at 5 more sectional titles before she graduates. Could she conceivably end up with 12 sectional titles in 3 different sports when finished in high school? You're a winner, bro.
I ended up with 10, yeah.
You're a winner. All right, so introduce yourself.
Huh?
Your name?
I'm Maddy Frank. I'm from Syracuse. I went to James Liswick High School. I did play basketball, soccer, and softball in high school, and then I went to SUNY Oneonta for my undergrad education, and I played a 4-year career of women's basketball there.
Lit. So let's talk family a little bit.
Okay.
Who raised you? Mom and dad, siblings? What was your family like?
I've got my mom and dad and my one younger sister. We were all under one roof. I would say I was closest with my dad just due to the athletics aspect of things. We spent a lot of time together, like on the road, AAU tournaments and whatnot. I'd say we're pretty similar people. So I think we looked like the cookie cutter family on paper.
Yeah. So with that, right? Like, what was your upbringing like? So you mentioned you and your dad were like, where did he play in college? And
he did.
Oh, he played basketball.
Yeah, he played at Ithaca.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was holding the record there, but someone just beat him a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, for like all-time assists.
That's nuts.
That's
nuts. Does he still go back and watch games or anything like that, or not really?
Yeah, well, he refs now.
Really?
Yeah, he's a pretty big referee in the area.
Okay.
He does D3 now, men's basketball, and then he'll do the high school games. And he was reffing in the Big East when I was younger.
That's crazy. That's cool.
So
that's what's up.
I spent a lot of time with him. We were very sports oriented. Like I said, my upbringing was good. You know, overall, my parents really provided for us. They worked a lot of hours. I feel like we spent a lot of time just kind of running from one thing to the next. They tried to get us involved in a lot of different activities, which I think taught me a lot about life on its own. You know, being an athlete, you just kind of learn like discipline, teamwork, things like that. But yeah, overall, I'd say it was a good childhood. I think every family has its qualms. But.
Yeah, for sure. So growing up, you talked about your parents a lot. Was there anybody else in your life that you looked up to, or that was just there, right? That kind of sparked stuff for you.
Well, my grandparents, my dad's mom and dad lived down the street, so they were always coming to my games, and my grandma would take me and like teach me how to knit and things like that.
That's cool.
So they're still here today. We're very close. So I enjoyed doing activities with her because it was kind of outside of the athletic realm, and she's Lebanese. She's like first generation. So it was really great to spend time with them, and then I feel like I spent so much time with just my teammates. I wouldn't necessarily say they helped raise me, but they definitely influenced me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we were a team through thick and thin. I played with many of them for like 8 years straight. They were my best friends. So whether that was like sleepovers at their house or their mom driving me to like a tournament, they definitely influenced on the person that I am today.
Oh, that's so cool. I think that's huge, and like I train kids a lot and stuff, and I coach and whatnot, and I think about how important that camaraderie is, right?
Definitely, yeah. You can learn so much from it.
Yeah, and you develop this almost like this family kind of culture before you get older, right? Before you have your own family or whatever happens with you. So were there any basketball players that you looked up to growing up, like even in high school or even in college? Like, was there anybody that you were like, yeah, I like them?
In college, not so much because I was so like focused on my own team. But Brianna Stewart, you know, Stewie, you got to.
She's the GOAT.
Yeah, in high school, I definitely looked up to her. I boxed her out one time. I was so about that, but you know, it's just so cool that she came from Syracuse and has achieved all that she has.
Yeah. So Oneonta, okay. What made you want to go there? And were you looking at any other schools? Like, what was it about that?
I was looking at a ton of schools, mainly for basketball, like the ones that would recruit me. I was looking for some just considering not playing at all and just going to a big school and just kind of doing the normal college student thing instead of being a collegiate athlete because it's a lot. And I wasn't sure, you know, how much I wanted to commit to that. I had like D3 offers. Lemoyne offered me to walk on, but I wasn't really interested in that. And it was tough because I was trying to finish up my high school season while visiting all these schools. Oneonta, honestly, I kind of had narrowed it down. I think I was between Oneonta, Barakpur, and Fredonia, actually, all SUNY schools.
Okay.
Mainly because of the money aspect.
Yeah.
And I got a full ride to Oneonta too, so that played a role. But I had an awesome recruiting visit there. The team really kind of took me out. They showed me the town. It was a good time. And I waited until like 2 days before the deadline. I woke up and I was like, I think Oneonta is the school for me.
That's so tough. So what was it like playing in the SUNY? So I know a bunch of people that have, and it's super competitive.
It's really competitive.
For real. And Oneonta's women's basketball team is good too. So what was that like for you?
It was great. We really had a very competitive league, and people don't always realize that because it's SUNY. But we went head to head like most games, even with the teams that were lower in the conference, if you will, like Potsdam. It was still usually kind of a grind. And it was a great experience. You know, I have no regrets. But being a D3 athlete, you really are committing just as much as a D1, in my opinion. Obviously, there's different perks you get as a D1 athlete. And there's more pressure because it's D1, but it still is like a significant commitment. And I don't regret any of it. I've made so many interpersonal relationships from it. I've learned so many life lessons from it. But it was definitely a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. I saw something like a post or whatever a couple days ago about that. And I don't think, unless you're a Division III athlete, I don't think you understand how much time and effort we put into the love of the game, essentially, right? And chances of us going on after that, super slim, right? But like everything, it's just so different. And then on top of that, it's still super competitive. You know what I'm saying? And I think that people don't give it enough credit. It's starting to grow a little bit more, right? I think it's starting to become a little bit more popular of a choice for people to do. But it's a lot more competitive, I think, than people realize.
Oh, for sure. We had some great, I mean, on the girls' side and the guys' side, I would love to watch their games because they always played right after us. And they had some amazing talent. I mean, some of those guys could have probably gone D2 or D1.
Yeah.
But it was really competitive. And yeah, it's crazy because D3, you really are playing for the love of the game. Like, that's it. Because you're not really getting the free perks. You're paying for your shoes and stuff. So. Yeah, I mean, I guess I really did play for the love of the game. 4 years. I was kind of surprised I made it that far.
It's nuts, right?
Yeah, because there were some trying times.
Yeah, but honestly, I feel like, so I'm a firm believer that all of those trying times, they set us up for the next struggle or trials and tribulations that we have, right? As long as we get through them, you feel me? But we got to get through them. We can't go around them or avoid them or whatever. So with that, this is kind of a two-part question. What is some advice that you would give, we'll go first high school, for like a high school senior, junior, whatever, that wants to play in college? So what's some advice that you would give them?
I think first, you really gotta evaluate your game and how much you really want to commit and you want to play. For me, I knew that like going to Oneonta, I could be a very like star player there. Not that I'm gonna like go drop 20, but I knew that I was gonna get time freshman year if I, stayed the course. If I went to SU or something and tried to walk on, like probably was gonna ride the bench for 4 years. So
Right.
you gotta decide like what it's really worth to you. And I do recommend like you gotta make sure that you like the school. I loved Oneonta's campus. They had the program that I wanted. They were a good school. They were cost affordable. So there was a lot of other aspects that attracted me to that other than basketball. And I think that's really important because sometimes people just follow the career and there's so much that can happen. I mean, injuries, like maybe you just decide you don't have the love for it to play anymore. Maybe you and the coach don't get along. And then you see people that just transfer like 4 times throughout their career. And if you want to avoid that, I think it's important that you choose the school for the school and the sport be just an aspect of it.
Yeah, I think you said it. You literally said everything perfect. I feel like you hit every like aspect. I think number one, like you said, the school's got to be a good fit for you, right? Eventually, like we all know the quote, like the ball stops dribbling, or we stop playing football, we got to retire, we got to do this, we got to do that,
and
right?
You don't know when it's gonna come.
Yeah, for real. And then that's the next thing that you said, like injuries, bro. It happens to everybody, and usually when we don't expect it, and usually it's worse. Basketball, it's always worse. Like an ankle can put you out for months, let alone nowadays it's always ACLs and stuff like that.
For sure.
And then lastly, kind of too, on top of that, I think it's just like school, right? At the end of the day, it's our education. It should be that should be the beginning of that whole kind of chapter as well. But so I think that's awesome. So then, what's some advice that you give someone currently in college, right? Like you said, you struggled a little bit, whatever it was, and how do you bounce back, right? How do you juggle sports, schools, relationships, friends, family, stuff going on back home? You know what I mean? Work. Like it's a lot. As a D3, we're doing a lot of stuff.
It's a lot.
It's crazy. So what's some advice that you give like a current college basketball player right now?
Yeah, college is like, people say it's the best time of your life, and it was, but it was like the hardest too. I mean, you're learning a lot, and it kind of at an accelerated pace, and you're on your own for the first time, and you're figuring out like how to handle so many different situations and your time management. For me, I think it just comes down to like, you really got to commit and value those commitments, and the rest will follow, like your time management. If you value your degree and you value your sport, like you're gonna find the time to practice, you're gonna find the time to study, so there isn't really an excuse to sit here and be like, well, I didn't have the time to work hard, I didn't have the time to do this, because you do.
Right.
It's just a matter of, maybe you got to get more organized, maybe you got to ask for help, like maybe you got to go to your coach and be like, maybe you can open up the gym for me at 5 a.m. and I can come in and get some shots up. So I think it really just comes down to your drive, and you really gotta like look deep within if you have that drive, and make it a focus of every day.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's like, I was talking to somebody at work about this, and how college is such a weird time because we're still learning ourselves, right? But like the world isn't stopping.
No.
Things are actually moving a little bit quicker than they seemed before, right? And now our priorities have to change. And then now I got to deal with this coach yelling at me, but like I just failed my math test, and I got to work later, and I got all this stuff to do. My mom's sick. You know what I'm saying? There's just so much more going on, and I think that's really great advice for people that are struggling with like all of those things.
Yeah, ask for help. I mean, I think I struggled a lot like freshman and sophomore year. Not really that people would have noticed, but I'd say more internally, like I was just stressed out, like I wasn't sleeping that well, and it was hurting my performance in different ways, and me and my coach weren't really getting along that well. And I think I finally, like junior year, I went in there and I was meeting with her once a week, and I would just kind of be like, this is where I'm at with everything, this is how I'm feeling mentally, like these are my stressors this week, like this is what I have handled, because I was in the midst of applying for grad school and getting all that together too. And it was just kind of nice to like go in there and finally be upfront and kind of ask for help, like, hey, like I could use your help on this, like I just need you to know like this is where I'm kind of at this week, if you have any guidance and whatnot. I think it's important to try not to just do everything on your own.
Yeah, I think it's cool, a cool little segue. The mental health of an athlete, right? I think that's literally everything you're talking about. It just kind of encapsulates that. And how we have so much going on, and but we're like 20.
Yeah.
Right? We're like 21 or 22 or 18, and I think there's like this weird this weird element of we get pushed out of high school, we get pushed out of our house, and we're like, yo, they're like, you're grown now, bro. Figure it out.
Yeah.
But then you still have people kind of telling you what to do. You still have people there that can help you and assist you. And I think mentally that's so hard for athletes to juggle, right?
It's a lot. Because as an athlete compared to like a normal college student, you know, as a normal student, you can kind of mess up. You can not go to class. You can do things that maybe you shouldn't be doing. But as an athlete, like, you're held to a high standard.
Right.
And someone's job is literally depending on like your success too. I mean, your coach and whatnot, like, they're there to win. So I think it is definitely an added layer of pressure and responsibility that we go through.
For sure. And like, you sound like you were and have been, and still are, right? Like a leader. So on top of all of that stuff, right, you have to like hold the burdens of your teammates too, right? You have to be able to like push them, but also be able to be like, nah, bro, I get it. What do you need help with?
Yeah.
While you're going through what you're going through on top of that, right? There's so many layers. I just don't think it's so tough unless you're an athlete. You get it. If you're not, it's so hard to understand.
It's hard to appreciate, for sure. Yeah, when I look back on, because I was a captain my last 2 years, me and 2 other girls, and I'm like trying to facilitate these freshmen.
Right.
I'm having to like run study hall and make sure that they're getting their work done. And we had like one that had a run in with the cops, and so she got like arrested, and we're trying to deal with that and bring it to our coach before she finds out through the grapevine.
Yeah.
And just be the moderators of all of this. And I'm like, I'm 21. Like, I have so much on my plate. I just am legal drinking age.
For real. And then like you said, then on top of that, it's like, you have your studies too.
Yeah.
And like, if your program is tough, that's a lot too to kind of handle and juggle. So my next question is, if you could, right, would you go back and do it all over again? Would you choose Oneonta? Would you go about things a little bit differently? What do you think?
I would 100% do it all over again. And I would do it at Oneonta. I have no regrets for that decision. It was awesome. Would I do things differently? For sure.
Yeah.
You know, hindsight's 2020.
For sure.
I think I did the best with what I had at that time in terms of just self-awareness and my own thoughts and experience. So it's easy to have regrets, but I don't really. It was part of the growth, and I'm sure I'm the bad guy in some people's stories, and I'm sure I'm the great guy in others. So, but yeah, I mean, every day I'm like, oh my God, we graduated 4 years ago.
That's nuts.
And it feels like a lifetime. But
that's nuts. I love that you said that. I heard like a quote one time, and I loved it. It was kind of similar. It was just like I'm definitely going to be the villain in somebody's story, right? In hopes to be the hero in somebody else's, which I'm sure you are, right? And you just can't really let that get to you. You know what I mean? Like, what happens in the past happens, and as long as we can grow and move on from it, we're fine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's transition. So after Oneonta, what was next?
So I wanted to become a physician assistant, and those programs are actually extremely difficult to get into. They're very selective. And it was tough at Oneonta because we were kind of going through a transition with our pre-health program, so I didn't really have anyone guiding me through that process, so I was kind of guiding myself. And I graduated, and then I actually had to move home to Syracuse because I had to get more clinical experience. So I was making $12.50 an hour, I think, with a bachelor's degree straight out of school. And I was working 40 hours a week as a medical assistant, which you don't even need a bachelor's for, just to get my clinical experience. And I just kept telling myself, like, it's gonna pay off, it's gonna pay off. And sure enough, I applied to PA school, and I got some interviews, and I ended up getting into upstate. So I went there, which is in Syracuse as well, and it's SUNY too. And that would encompass the next 2.5 years of my life.
That's so crazy. I love when I hear stories about people that have to work a little bit.
It was tough.
Right.
It was tough.
But I love it because I feel like that is, in my opinion, that's so much more realistic.
Yeah.
Very few people get to just like jump and be like the millionaire, jump and have everything they want, jump and have the family, the wife, the husband, the job, the car, right?
Especially these days.
Yeah, so why not work a little bit, right? But also, why not share your story? Because there's more people out there that have to work that right now are making whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bruh, I'm not trying to do this right now. You know what I'm saying? So when they hear it, right, and when they see it, they're like, oh, well, she did, I probably should keep going, keep pushing through, right? Kind of transition. So this is one of my favorite topics of the show that I have, right? When we talk pain and loss, because I feel like I smile when I say those words because I know what it's done for me in my life, and I've seen what it's done for other people, and how beautiful it has made their story turn a little bit, right? So just talk a little bit about that aspect with you, right? Like things that you've been through. What's like one time in your life that you can kind of center around the growth and transition of a pivotal point?
I think in terms of loss, I've been lucky enough to not really like lose any significant family members and whatnot. I still have most of my immediate family, so not really an outside type of thing, but I really lost myself, I think. And losing yourself sometimes hurts more than losing anyone else, because you look in the mirror and you're like, I have no idea what I stand for. I don't even know who I am. I don't know why I'm acting this way or what I plan on doing. And I think that a lot of people get stuck there. And for me, that kind of came like, I would say I kind of went into college lost due to some things that happened in high school, some trauma, if you will. And then I kind of went into college, and college is all about losing and finding yourself. And then I came out and I still hadn't really found myself. I was still very lost, and a lot of those precipitating factors were due to a relationship that I was in that was very toxic and bad for me. And sometimes it sounds so corny kind of saying that can do that to somebody. But it did. It had my head all messed up. And I was down pretty bad. And I actually graduated college and I came back home and I just kind of realized that I was not the type of person, I didn't really know who I was, but I wasn't the type of person that I wanted to be. And that was affecting me a lot and I realized it. So I kind of put myself into therapy actually. I was going bi-weekly and I was like, I need to figure out why I'm in this and what led me to this point and how I'm going to get out of it.
What was like, I don't want to say the turning point yet. What was it like being down bad, right? And having to face yourself first? Because I think that's like the first step is literally facing the problem. And that's usually us, right? First. Yeah. Whether it's what we allow, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's us that are doing the toxic stuff. But like, what was it like? I don't want to say being at the bottom, but like just being at a spot where you're like, bro, like I wasn't always like this. You know what I'm saying? Like I love when people tell me that because I believe them, and I feel that genuinely, like in my own being. Like I know what it feels like to look at somebody and then like look at you and you're like, fuck, bro, I wasn't always like, I promise, right? Even without saying it sometimes. But I love hearing that also because to me it's hopeful.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's some hope in that. So what was it like being down bad and being like, bro, what did I do? This isn't me.
I think the hardest part is like finally just turning and facing yourself and being like, all right, like I'm gonna confront all of these demons. I think that's the hardest part to get to, because once you decide that you're gonna do it, it's not easy, but it's worth it, and you kind of realize that, so you keep trekking through. But before all of that, like I said, I kind of went through some things in high school. I had another really bad relationship, and then some other kind of trauma, if you will, my last year, and that kind of started it, and I just was on autopilot. I feel like kind of through college too, just with the scheduling and being an athlete, and my program was very rigorous, so I was literally just on autopilot. I was like, all right, I gotta be here at this time, I gotta be here, I gotta be here, and I never stopped to really like examine my emotions, and I was super reactive. I was kind of filled with a lot of rage and anger. Like I used to kind of get into some tussles and stuff, like I was pretty volatile, and again, I just kind of was like, well, that's me and that's how I am. And I took it like that and I took it in stride, which isn't a great way to be, because it wasn't really helping my relationship with myself and others and my family and friends and my teammates. And so finally, actually, I was on a vacation with my family. We were in Hawaii, and Hawaii, like I had just graduated, like we were in Hawaii. You would think like, oh my God, you should be so happy. Like you've just achieved something, you're in a new place with your family. And I had a great trip, but I was so like angry during that trip. Like someone would say one thing and I would lash out at them. And I was just like, I can't stop. Like I want to stop, and I'm being such a bitch, if you will, but I can't. And so I came back and I was like, what is going on with me? Like, why do I feel this way? And so I finally was like, all right, I think I gotta kind of unpack this. Like, what's going on here? Because clearly there's something in my life that just is causing all of this rage.
Yeah.
And that was the start to a very long journey back to myself.
That's so cool though. Tough, I'm sure.
Tough, but so worth
Cool.
it.
So was there anybody in your life during this time that was like, yo, Maddy, you're tripping, bro? Like, was there anybody that kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to just say held you accountable, but just gave you that like, damn, like, yo, my fault. And then it almost makes you like look in the mirror like, yo, I'm bugging.
Yeah, I think there were people that tried.
Okay.
I had an older teammate from Syracuse, actually, that Oneonta, that kind of tried to like guide me and mentor me, but I was on my own type of time. And as much as I appreciate her, like I was like, I'm good, like I'm doing my thing. And,
Yeah.
And so I kind of brushed that off. And then my parents would make comments, but I was like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I do think it's something you kind of have to come into on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate the people that tried to hold me accountable, my coach too. But I wasn't really hearing it.
I mean, sometimes when you're like, you're super like about something, right? And I feel like you're the type of person that, yo, bro, it's gonna be your way probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna do it your way, and that's how it's gonna
Yeah.
be, and that's fine. But it makes it so much harder, like to turn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when was the moment that you realized, like, yo, I'm so much better than I was before?
I'm trying to, cause I think through the past like 4 years, and I'm still in therapy, but it's been like an ebb and flow of finding and losing myself. But I think my self-awareness heightened so much that like I wasn't on autopilot anymore. I was really processing my emotions. I was feeling them. And so there would be time periods where I was like feeling super great. And I was like, you know, I've just kind of unlocked a new level, if you will. Like, you know, I've worked on these things. My temper has gotten so much better. I've processed some of this like trauma. You know, my relationships are thriving. And then life happens and things set you back. But it was always hopeful to me, because I would be handling situations thrown my way that would have totally set me spiraling in the past. I was handling them with much more grace, much more accountability. My temper was a lot better, like I said. So I think I was getting like small moments of validation throughout that. And then hearing my friends too that kind of stuck with me from start. I don't even want to say to finish, because it's going to be a lifelong process.
Right.
But hearing them say like, Maddy, you've changed so much.
Yeah.
Like you've grown so much. We're so proud of you. And occasionally hearing that from my parents too. I think those were really the moments that I was like, all right, this is worth it.
That's so cool. Yeah, like I was kind of saying earlier, it's kind of nice because like all of the things that we go through, as long as we get through them, they set us up to get through whatever comes next. You know what I'm saying? That's life. Like when life hits, and we can only control so much, right, of that stuff. So to kind of lead into that, okay, let's talk perspective a little bit. We talked about a little bit about this earlier, but it's kind of loss, kind of like goes well with that. What do you think is missing in today's society? And I'm super excited to ask you about this because of where you're from and where you're at, and where you work, right? And Cuse, you know what I'm saying? It's been rough. It has been rough.
It's rough.
And it hasn't gotten that much better.
It's getting worse.
So what do you think is missing right now?
I think the core things that are missing, we're in like an epidemic of lack of self-awareness, and it's fueling a lack of discipline and accountability. I think just widespread throughout society, and I don't think people realize how much that transcends into all aspects of society. Because not only is that just going to affect you as a person and the people in your life surrounded by you, but it's going to affect your kids. It's going to affect all your decisions. It's going to affect how you practice your career, and ultimately that's all impacting poverty, crime, homelessness, generational trauma, all of these things. And I think those are the three main factors, though, that we really need to kind of tune up. And it's tough in today's world because we have so many vices. You know, I don't want to deal with myself, and these are unconscious thoughts. You know, generally you're not usually consciously choosing to not deal with your demons, but you're like, it's your ego at work, and it's saying like, this is too hard, this is a protective mechanism, like just go drink yourself into a coma, go party, go have sex with 9 women or men, go scroll on TikTok for 8 hours, go do drugs. Like you have so many options to go numb those tough feelings and emotions to avoid you from dealing with yourself in today's world. And unfortunately, we're just not really being brought back to ourselves.
I love what you said. You said a lot of really, really good things. But I love when you said it's your ego working, right? It's our pride. It's like, oh my goodness, it's so hard to talk ourselves out of something if we've already talked ourselves into it. You know what I'm saying? And you're right. There's a trillion vices, but there's also, like you said, there's also so many people that are like, nah, that's cool, bro. You're good. Don't worry about that. Instead of people that are gonna be like, nah, bro, why would you do that? Like, that's not cool. You know what I'm saying? And then also to kind of piggyback off of what you said, when we talk about accountability, right? Like you're in therapy. A lot of people don't believe in therapy, right? A lot of people don't believe in talking to people about their problems, and to each their own, but I think there is some sense of accountability that comes with that. You know what I mean? And I think there's this ability to drop your ego. There's this ability to drop your pride. And I don't know, I think ultimately people are scared of being vulnerable.
For sure.
Right? To somebody that doesn't know you and might not care. That's the way the mind thinks, right? To tell them all these personal details and be able, why would Maddy care if I tell her that stuff? Like, she doesn't really care. She's not really trying to help me. And we're constantly like, it's like this battle in the mind, right? This war of like, this tug and push of just like, do they want to help? Or is that our mind just tripping, right? So I think you're so right about like the self-awareness piece and accountability as well.
Yeah, people, I mean, today's society, we're built off of instant gratification. So people they come to me and they're like, well, I have pain, fix it, or I have this, fix it. And that's how we are, outside of healthcare too. We just want things now and we want them done and we want them done our way and we don't want to hear anything else about it.
Right.
We've become very entitled especially since COVID, I've noticed, at least in my field with the people that I deal with. But I think it's just a general sense of entitlement. And I think it is actually like a defense mechanism. I think that people are anxious and they're stressed out and they're strapped because our margin, I feel like prior to COVID, not that COVID is like a huge factor here, but the margin for error, if you will, or just the margin of life was a lot bigger. Inflation wasn't as high, wages were more proportionate. Obviously less people died. We now have this virus swarming around. Just things in general. The housing market hadn't crashed yet. Cars were more affordable. All of these things, you didn't have to work 3 jobs to fund the lifestyle that you're living. And that comes down to pride too. I mean, you have people that are driving Mercedes knowing that they make $20 an hour and can't really afford that. Just due to ego and pride and our societal values. But our margin, we live in a marginless world these days, and so we're constantly going from one thing to the next. Some people are working 80 hours a week just to make ends meet, and it's just putting so much stress on us as a whole. And I think as a protective mechanism, we just believe that we deserve things, and we're like, well, give this to me now, and that's why we have so many Karens, even though that's like a social media trend, but it's true. I mean, people just come in and demand stuff, and it's like, where did you get this audacity? Is audacity on sale? Because, oh my gosh.
For real. But it's crazy because then it trickles down, right? Like you said earlier, you literally said it perfectly this whole time, but it trickles down to who I think is like the most important group of people on this planet is the kids.
The kids.
Right? They're the future. We say they are, right?
They are.
And if we mean it, then we would act differently, right? And with all of that kind of being said, who's to blame? Is it these crazy children, you know what I'm saying? Or is it these non-caring parents, you know what I'm saying? Or is it these parents that want to do things their way? I don't know, who's to blame in that?
Well, so in biology and medical school and whatnot, we always have the debate, and psychology, like nature versus nurture. For me, I think it's like a 70-30 type of thing. It's nurture primarily, and it starts at home. And I mean, mental health has really just spiraled out of control. I mean, I have 8-year-olds that I'm sure you see too, coming into the hospital, like being suicidal and like having plans. And I'm like, at 8 years old, I just learned how to tie both my shoes and long divide. And it's so sad that these kids at 8 years old want to end their lives. And we have other kids that are identifying as cats and wanting to pee in litter boxes. And it's a whole thing, but it amazes me when the parents come in and they're like, well, my kid is acting like this and I don't understand why. And he's this. And I'm like, well, have you looked at yourself?
For real.
I mean, where do you think he's learning this from? Have you protected him from certain people? I mean, it's so sad, and the kids really are the future, and I don't think it's their fault. I mean, yeah, in Syracuse, our crime these days is rampant because of the kids. I mean, you've got 12-year-olds with guns, selling drugs, stealing cars. My friends work at Elmcrest, and they see a bunch of stuff too in terms of like kids being abused and neglect, and it's just getting worse and worse. But it really comes down to the parents, and like we were talking about earlier, like things can be done to you, you know, you go through stuff in life, but when you become a parent and you become an adult, you have to take accountability for that stuff, and you have to, you know, invest in yourself and unpack that trauma so that you don't pass it down generationally. Because those kids are just, they're sponges, they're absorbing everything.
Yeah, they're super moldable too. I think you're right. It definitely starts at home. I 100% agree with that. Whenever parents are like, yo, what about this with my kids, what about that? Even for me, outside of work, right, like at the gym. Like if I get a parent that's like OD overzealous about something, I already know that kid's entitled.
Yeah.
And I don't have to ask where it came from, right? And so then it's like, for me, I feel like it's tough because our job, when you're not home, right, is you want to regulate. You want to break it, but you want to regulate because you know the minute the kid leaves, they're back into that same environment that they got the stuff with, right? So for me, I think sometimes that's like my hardest task, right, is molding these children without being there all the time. You know what I mean? And not having that ability to do so.
And these parents, I think that people need to have more discipline, in my opinion. I think a lot of people don't have kids for the right reasons, and they bring kids into the world, and half the time they can't even afford what it's like to really like truly support a child. And that's a form of trauma on its own, like poverty related trauma, when you just literally don't have shoes and clothes and stuff. But it starts with us, and I do not think we're doing a good job of regulating that. I think we're doing quite an awful job, to be honest.
No, I think it's terrible, and that kind of leads us into our next topic, right, about self-love, right? I think I always tell people, right, if you love yourself, you can love others, and it's so much easier to do so. So, how important is self-love to you?
Oh, it's so important, truly, because when you're not happy with yourself, that insecurity, and everybody's insecure on a spectrum, you know, but the really detrimental levels of insecurity, like, will just seep through you into all aspects of your life. You'll really become like a hater to other people, and you won't be happy for other people, you won't be happy with yourself. You just truly can't enjoy life to the fullest. And it's tough to be around insecure people, like constantly asking for validation or constantly being like, am I fat? Like, am I this? Am I that? And it's just like my point of view is you got one body, one mind. Like, you might as well try to make the most of it. Like, definitely try to optimize it, you know, eat healthy, work out, like go to therapy, work on yourself. But at some point, like if you spend your whole life hating yourself and hating certain small things about you, which the social media epidemic has not helped either. Yeah. People are like, I hate my elbows, and I'm like,
for what?
I've never even looked at those. It's just, you know, you spend your whole life hating yourself. You're not living. You're never going to truly live.
Yeah, I like you said the word enjoy, right? Enjoy life. And you're right, how could you? Like, how could you genuinely enjoy really anything for real without thinking about, oh, well, I'm this way and I'm that way, and they have this, I don't have that, right? So my next question to you is, are you proud of you, right? Are you proud of the things that you have made it through and where you're at?
Definitely, yeah. I don't think I give myself enough credit sometimes, because I really have worked on myself extensively. I've put in really a lot of time and effort into just who I am as a person, and I still have bad moments, I still have insecure days, I'm still a villain in people's stories, but I don't really have any regrets. Like, I'm living my life to the fullest, the best I can. I'm trying to, you know, spread wisdom and knowledge. I'm trying to be the best friend, daughter, provider that I can be. And so yeah, I would say that I'm full of self-love now, but I wasn't always. And it waxes and wanes, you know, naturally. You don't just wake up every single day full of it. It's a process.
Yeah,
You
for
definitely
sure.
have to invest in yourself. But I'm definitely proud of where I am.
I think it's also like a training quality. Like you said,
For sure.
like you're gonna go through stuff in life, and you have to be able to be like, yo, I'm so proud of myself. Like I genuinely love who I am, and I know I wasn't that person before, but like that's who I am now. You know what I mean? And I'm so glad that I'm taking these steps. And sometimes talking to ourselves like that, it sounds so crazy. It sounds almost like I don't know. I feel like it just sounds weird, but you have to because you deserve that. You feel me?
Well, your mind will absorb that, and people, you look at your whole life, people will try to tell you who you are and the type of person you are, and it's usually a projection, a reflection of them and whatnot. And so if you define yourself by the qualities that other people define you by, you'll just be living like a life not true to you. And I had to learn that because I was definitely a people pleaser. It's just the way I was raised, the way I was conditioned, and that's actually what filled me with so much like rage and resent. Is that I was doing things for other people, and I was basing my life of what they wanted for me or what they wanted from me, and not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of self-love, I think is being able to draw boundaries too. And I've gotten very good at being like, I'm not gonna do that today, but like I can help you here. And just like I'm not gonna commit to something that I don't want to do for the sake of other people.
Yeah, that's so tough too because right, like I'm a big like there's like there's that the argument of like logic and reason, right? And I flirt somewhere in the line, like in the middle, but I'm pretty logical with stuff, and it's tough for me because I'd be like, yeah, but Maddie, you told me if I did this, it'd be that.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think sometimes people look at life like that, like, yeah, well, this whole time they told me if I did it like this and I'd look like that and I'd be like this and I'd be like that. And like you said, we're living up to somebody else's expectations and someone else's standards. And ultimately, we aren't going to have self love in that. There's no like happiness in that.
It's a bucket with a hole and it'll never be full.
For real. All right, so what's next for you? So, what are some personal goals? Like, what are some things that you're still working on in your own self?
I have goals in a bunch of different areas, I would say. I have like monetary goals, just savings. I would like to, get a house one day.
Yeah.
In terms of just self-development goals, healing and like handling conflict and, controlling my temper and whatnot. Those are kind of daily practices that I have to put into place and dealing with my emotions just because I was never really conditioned to. And I was never good at it. So it's something that I really do have to work at, and it's an everyday kind of thing for me. But I enjoy it because I do think it makes me a better person. Being the best provider I can be in my career, helping people in the ways that I can, just increasing my knowledge base. And I'm really trying to get more into volunteering. I just signed up for 2 agencies because I feel like our society, we've gotten a lot more like focused on just me. Like I only care about what I've got going on, like F other people. I don't really want to give back and whatnot.
Right.
And so I want to try to, volunteer a little bit more. I would like to learn a few new hobbies. Like I'm looking into golf, maybe learning Spanish because that would improve my career as well. So I'm kind of a goal-oriented person, I think, just being an athlete. So I like to have my hands in a few different pots and have different manageable goals for myself for me to strive towards.
I like that you said that you want to volunteer more, right? Because I kind of like, if it doubles back on our whole conversation, that's that. It's this ability to, like, right and wrong. You know how to help people. You know what people could be going through, how people could feel. But I'm just going to play the background. I'm just going to stay over there.
Yeah.
Like, nah, sometimes you have to get in the field, right? You have to, like, be there and be touchable, right? And maybe I guarantee, but you'll learn something from it. You'll develop something new in yourself from that. But I think more importantly, because for a while I used to struggle with that. Because everybody knows, like, I'm all over it. Like, I'm all over helping people. I'm all about being in the mix and being, like, front line with that stuff. But I struggled with just feeling like it didn't feel almost like I was, like, reciprocated for that, right? And then there's times I had to remember and kind of like realign myself and be like, ah, Caleb, so like, what are you doing this for then? Are you doing it so that people are like, good job? Are you doing it so that you get like a thank you? Or is it something that's in you that's innate that you're like, nah, this is what I really feel like I should be doing?
Yeah.
And I think if we had more people in society, in the community, we wouldn't have these issues that we're talking about to the extent that we have them, right? It doesn't completely erase it because people are who they are and we do what we do, right? But it would dramatically increase positivity and optimism in so many situations that they can't see past tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so let's flip it a little bit. Travel. You love to travel.
I do love to travel.
So where are some places that you've been that you like really enjoy?
I'd say like top 2 places were Spain and Hawaii.
Oh, why'd you go to Spain?
Spain, I went this past summer. My friend was actually backpacking through Europe, and she was like, "Hey, if you want to meet me, like,
that's crazy.
we could." So we stayed in hostels,
okay.
And we went to Madrid, Barcelona, and Mallorca. So that was really cool because I feel like the hostel experience is very different than like going with your family, staying in a hotel type of thing. And I had been like out of the country, but never overseas.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle over there, I mean, Spain is beautiful and the food is so good. And I just love observing their culture, to be honest. My Spanish, I've taken a few years of it, but it's not that fluent. But just like observing the way they dress, like the way that they live their life over there, they seem so much less stressed. They have a siesta, which is like their nap hour during the day. And you can get wine for breakfast. Like they don't serve water over there; you have to pay for it.
Really?
Yeah, at restaurants. But
that's funny.
Wine is like the same price. Like
that's crazy.
They drink all day. You drink wine and you go to work, then you go to siesta, and they finish work a little bit later. But I don't know, it just seems so much less stressful over there.
Yeah.
You don't really see like obese people. They all do smoke generally, but I don't know, it just seems like a better quality of life. And so it was so interesting for me to observe that.
Do you think that people there feel that way about it? Like, you know, sometimes when we're somewhere, we're like, bro, once we get out of queues, it's gonna be so much better. Oh my God, it's so cool over here. And then you go back, you're like, I hate it here. Do you think that, like, I don't really know anybody in Spain, but do you think that they think that way? Or do you really think, because I truly think America is beautiful in certain aspects.
Certain.
Right? But like other countries are like beautiful for real. You know what I mean? Like everything from like nature down to the people, right? And how people are treated and stuff like that too. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there definitely is always an element of grass is greener type of syndrome. I do think their culture is a lot different over there than here. And that's the reason why some people come here. You know, we have the American dream. Like, you really can start from nothing and level up theoretically.
Right.
Whereas over there, you know, I think they have a lower cost of living, but lower wages. Their lifestyle is a lot slower paced, and things like that. So I guess it would be to each its own. Right now, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, this seems so lucrative.
Yeah.
And I would love to live over here, but I'm sure they have their own kind of individual qualms about it.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Like, the grass is greener approach is always nice to have in hindsight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right, so in closing, what's some advice that you would give, this is super general, to someone that's just kind of going through it? I think that you'd have really good advice, but just like whether they're down bad about relationships, family, where they're at in life, their kids, their friends, right? There's just so much to be sadly, but truthfully and realistically down bad about, right? But to me personally, there's nothing better than when you get someone that can speak life and positivity into your life, and you know it's genuine, you know it's authentic, and you can actually like roll with it. You know what I mean? So like, what would be some stuff that you would say to somebody that is kind of just going through it?
Yeah, I've been there, you know, I've been down bad before, I've been depressed, all of the above, and I think that people get stuck, and I think they just kind of get stuck in this turmoil and then they get stuck in the gray area and don't really, not that they're not trying, but they just don't really know what step to take next. And I think the important thing is to really just keep going, but to face yourself, you know, put in the work to sit with yourself, to put down the vices, to face your demons, no matter how hard that is, to unpack your trauma, you know, to end the bad relationship, to walk away, to draw boundaries, things like that, and really invest in yourself, instead of, you know, keep turning to different things to numb those feelings.
Yeah.
Because your quality of life really will improve once you get over those hurdles, and the only way to get over them is to go through, not around, like you said earlier.
Absolutely. All that kind of like you saying that kind of makes me smile a little bit because this last quote that I saw that I found, I feel like it embodies that really well. And it says, as a freshman, she would guard the best guards. Last year and this year, she always guards the best players as long as it's not a center. She's athletic enough to cover speed-wise, and she's big enough and strong enough that she can guard bigger players. Her defensive IQ is very high. And so like the way that you talk and from the way that you say that you've progressed, right, in life, it makes sense why you are who you are, right? I think that you are, you're able to not only just adapt, but like thrive and survive in various environments. And sometimes we don't realize it when we're going through it, but a lot of us, like deep down, I'm fully like aware and capable that I know I can get through certain situations. I could be down bad forever, right? But I know that I can. So when you're saying that, it was kind of funny. I was like looking at this and I'm like, that's so crazy because you probably didn't realize it right in college or even later on in life when you're going through stuff, but like the freshman, you could do it. Like if you could do it physically in a sport, like you can definitely do it in life, right? There's so much that we kind of talked about earlier, but as an athlete that we have to handle. Yeah. Right. If you can juggle all the stuff you juggled in college and you're still here, you can juggle life when we're not playing basketball anymore. Yeah, it definitely builds that resilience. It does. So that's awesome. Maddy, thank you so much for coming up here and talking to me. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited for everybody to watch this, and I appreciate you. Thank you. You're welcome.